Unveiling ISIS, the secret war against Christians in Africa. Despite the Islamic State, known as ISIS, losing significant ground in Iraq and Syria in 2019 and 2020, recent horrific events in Africa indicate the group's alarming resurgence. The brutal attack on the Luhubririha Secondary School in Mompomdwe, Uganda, where 37 students were killed by a suspected member of the Islamist aligned Allied Defense Forces, or the ADF, an ISIS affiliate, underscores this resurgence. The students were either butchered with machetes or burned to death, with the attack being one of the many ISIS related incidents in Africa. Further highlighting this menacing trend, a recent report from the Middle East Media Research Institute, or MEMRI for short, provides chilling details about the extensive attacks by ISIS-affiliated groups in Africa, primarily targeting Christian communities. According to MEMRI, quote, ISIS-linked fighters killed at least 202 Nigerian Christians, 157 Mozambican Christians, 365 Congolese Christians, with dozens of churches burned. The report also documents the widespread enslavement of minorities and forced conversion to Islam. These escalating terror acts serve as a distressing reminder of ISIS's expanding influence in Africa. So I thought this was really important because we were kind of talking about this on the show last week. A lot of people don't realize that ISIS is still a thing, and it's actually very active in Africa. And so that's why I wanted to talk about this week, because in general, these kinds of attacks don't get any coverage in Africa, which is really unfortunate. And it helps raise awareness about the fact that this threat of IS is still very real, but just because it's in a different country and it's not coming into Europe or the US the same way it used to, it's just fallen off the radar. But there is still a lot of really insane brutality that's happening, including this attack that happened on at this school in Uganda like 2 weeks ago. And it's horrific. Like, this is one of the worst school attacks that has happened in Uganda in a very, very long time. These people just went to this school and just started butchering people, straight up butchering all these students. And some of the bodies are so badly damaged that they're only going to be able to identify the bodies of the students through DNA sampling. And go ahead.
Can you imagine if these numbers were happening in Europe? Can you imagine what would be the news cycle like? If these exact same, like if there was a school attack by ISIS somewhere in Europe like this?
Even if this was happening like in Iraq or Syria, we would hear about this.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, so if it was happening in Iraq or Syria, we would hear about it, but it wouldn't be like dominating all over the news. But if it was happening in Europe, then it would be just like, it would be the biggest news of the decade.
Yeah.
That level of, yeah.
And I think so I was reading into this attack by the ADF, the Allied Democratic Forces is what they're technically known as. And the Allied Democratic Forces has been a problem in Uganda since like the late 90s. And they kind of became a thing because of grievances from local Muslims, and then it evolved into what it is now, where the ADF officially became an ISIS affiliate, I believe, in 2019. So they were a pre-existing group that existed long before ISIS, and then ISIS grew to the claim and fame and brand name that it is, and then they aligned themselves with ISIS, right? And they were saying that part of the reason behind this attack is basically because they've been facing a lot of pressure, and they wanted to show that they still have the teeth to do this. And they use it as marketing. This is their marketing.
Because I was thinking, like, exactly, you're so right to say, like, we're like, what's the point of this? Okay, you're like, it's to show strength. It's to show like we're still relevant people. We're still here. The brand is branding. It's as a marketing, because they need the marketing. People are like, why would they need to market? Because for recruiting, people need to believe that this is a thing that's alive, that is doing it, serving a purpose. They need to have brand recognition for recruiting reasons. That's why they. So imagine you being the victim. Imagine you being like a Christian that is being killed. I'm like, why are you killing me? Okay, so the reason they tell you is like, oh, because you're a heretic and blah blah blah. But the actual reason is that you are being killed for marketing purposes. Unbelievable.
It's so
This is
brutal.
this.
And
Yeah.
when I was reading this report includes a lot of imagery that is not usually included in reporting on this kind of stuff. And I'm talking like, they're like, here are the ISIS photos of the Christians that they beheaded and how they were advertising it and how they were talking about it and all this stuff. And one of the things that was included in this report, like Armin, I swear to God, I will never forget this image in my head. It was on the floor, on the ground, there was a head, just a beheaded, bloody head. And there was a man standing over this head. And what he was doing was he was holding this boy that was probably no more than 3 or 4 years old. And he's holding the boy over the head so that the baby boy can kick the head of the blasphemer and infidel.
The hell?
And they're like, here's a photo of this.
When was this?
I don't know off the top of my head when that photo was taken. I mean, if you give me a second, I can look it up.
No, is it recent? That's all I want to know.
I mean, within the past, since 2015.
Yeah.
God, I don't want to look at this picture again.
So, so some people are saying, no, don't forget about it. I don't want you to see
it's from 2014. That photo was from 2014.
Which countries in Africa are being mostly influenced?
So a lot of it is on the borders of Uganda. Mozambique is a very big one. We've talked about a lot of the beheadings and massacres that have happened in Mozambique. We talk about that on this show. In the Congo, in general, there's a lot of this issue. And in Nigeria has a problem with the Fulani Muslims becoming radicalized and getting into this kind of thing. In the past year, we've talked a lot about how the persecution of Nigerian Christians is exploding over the past few years.
Yeah. Nigeria especially has so much potential. You have, how people think like we're making atheists and secular activism. Oh, these atheists are making such a big deal about it, as if like it's the world problems could be solved by having less religion. Well, guess what? It can be. A lot of it can. It's true. Like everywhere you look, Nigeria is, I think, is one of the most largest countries in the world by population.
It's in the top 10 most populous.
I think it's number 7. I think
very,
and
very
it's
young.
soon going to go to 4, right? And very young. It has such a massive human potential, right? To become to not just advance, but also carry the rest of Africa with it. Okay, it has amazing potential, and it's being held back. Africa is being held back by religion. It's religion. United States is being held back by religion. Israel is being held back by religion. Iran is being held back by religion. India is being held back by religion. So atheist activism should be one of the priorities among different brands of activism. If you want a better world, atheist activism, look how small we are compared to other brands of activism. It should be one of the priorities in the world. Look where we could be. Look at where Africa could be right now. There's so much Africa could do right now. It's the insecurity right now in Africa that is holding things back. And the insecurity comes from religious extremism.
Well, and the religious extremism is entrenched by the dire material circumstances. We have to acknowledge that as well.
Of course,
it doesn't happen in a vacuum.
It's multifactorial. Okay, we're not trying to simplify things. Some people are saying it's only religion. Some people are saying religion has nothing to do with it. Okay, and it's only economic conditions. Okay, but it's neither one of these things. Religion is a major source of destabilization. It's not the only thing, but it's a major one.